Hey, everybody, Gail Craft here, and welcome to the Empowering Process podcast. And today I get the pleasure of introducing you to Laura Cross, Cross, and she is the founder of a company called White Sands Self Care LLC. And we're going to talk a little bit about challenges, disruptions, entanglement and how they can actually transform us. So I want you to open up your hearts, open up your minds, and come join me. Welcome, Laura. Hey, Laura, welcome to the Empowering Process podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Gail. I appreciate being here.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. So, I did a little introduction already, and I told people about your business, and I put a little teaser there. What I would love to get into with you is um, what is it that you do? And I want to say from a connected spiritual perspective, not for this is what I do for a business, but this is who I am. And then let's talk about the process of getting there in the first place. But let's start with the teasers because you're magnificent, and I want people to know that you are intuitive and how this impacts what you do right now.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'd like to think what I do does reflect who I am. I believe that's very important. And for me, I just love being able to connect with people from all over the world, getting different perspectives, learning different modalities, learn from them. There is just so much out there, and I love learning from them. I love the energies, and yeah, that just kind of partly makes me, who I am. It's not a job. It's something that I love to do.
That's fantastic. So some of the things that I do now, I work with people who are in the dark night that are really, really struggling to get out. And I do that because I've gone through that alchemization process myself. Some really tough times, more than once, but the last time was physical. And the person I become because of this experience is just nothing at all like the person that I was before. And I have been able to, because of those experiences, tap into, I don't want to say a higher being because we are that higher being in my perspective, but tap into the true me more so. And it just seems because I work with people like you, I get to hang out with amazing people. It grows exponentially because of how we learn and grow and support each other. So I know that you didn't wake up someday and be an amazing. So you probably we're all born amazing, but then life buried it. The excavation of Laura. What what was the one thing that kicked off the excavation of you and some of the processes that you went through that were, not fun, but worth it?
I'm not sure if I can even pin it down to one moment. But I like how you say that because it's not that I'm a different person. I'm the same person. It's just who I truly am is getting to shine more and be more up in the front, up in the world, up in everybody's face, so to speak. Um, yeah, I mean, growing up and stuff, I used to always get told that I was too sensitive. I needed a tougher shell. I'm an ambivert, so I am 55% introvert, 45% extrovert. A lot of people think I'm an extrovert. I'm like, well, nope. You're talking to the person that used to be quiet, shy, hide behind my dad. Unless someone started talking to me, yeah, I didn't start conversation. I didn't start conversations. So you grow up just going through school, going through the motions, doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. And which is fine. It shaped my life as it went. I met my husband and everything else went along. It wasn't until I left Colorado though, and I moved to Missouri because I just knew all I could tell people was in my heart of hearts, I knew we just needed a change. We didn't like the way Colorado was headed. I had already lost everything once. I wasn't going to lose my fiance. And truly, I started that for him. But when I got here, I started realizing how much I needed the change. I didn't miss the chaotic and crazy from from being in more of a city type life. I'm out in the country. I can feed my squirrels, my birds. I can walk around the property and just really slow down and appreciate what I have around me. And it just kind of started waking up a lot of different things. And then when I started the TV show, I started meeting people all across the world that were intuitives. And I started hearing about highly sensitive people and being told you're too sensitive, having deja vu moments. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So other people have these because I've had them, but it's not something that was ever talked about. You don't talk about it, you don't discuss it, you just kind of figure you're half losing your mind. So I started trying to like put pieces together. It just really made me want to open up and learn more and learn about other people's experiences. And there's a lot of us out there that have it, just people aren't talking about it.
Right. And people are starting to talk about it, right? I say we're starting to come out of the closet, the spiritual closet. And from my perspective, this whole one of the big lies, because I look at everything as though it's not true and then look for a different perspective. And for me, one of the big untruths is that there is a division between this body and our source, right? And by creating a division, then I am either putting that source on a pedestal over me or as something to be feared, right?
Right.
And if that's me, if I am from that source, even Christ says he's from that source, then that's not something that I would put on a pedestal or fear, right?
Right.
It is something that I would want to learn to connect to and stay. And I don't even want to say connect to because we are connected, but maybe allow to emerge.
Yeah, we're connected, and I'm learning that we're connected, but we don't always realize
Yes,
that we're
that's
connected.
what waking up
It's like
is.
we shut a switch off somewhere along the line, and sometimes turning that switch back on is very difficult, especially if you're a heady person, which I have a tendency to be heady. So it can slow the process. I will tell you that much. But yeah, I think everyone has to discover their own path and what's right for them. But that's also why I love building judgment-free holistic communities because we all have the right to our different perceptions and perspectives.
Yeah.
I just think we need to all treat each other like the decent human beings that we are
And
and respect that. You don't have to agree with it. You can respect it and you can agree to disagree. You can walk away, you can turn off the chat. You have choices, right?
you have choices. I was with a client today and talk we she's coming through. And so we talked about, I call it the universal GPS, right? So we're here, we chose a path. We said, "Hey, I'll play that game. I'll do that, play that role." And we come down and then because we have choice and free will, we choose not to step in the path that we created for ourselves because we forgot,
Right,
right? And the universe will give us hints, sometimes a smack in the head, sometimes a brick on the head, right? To
right,
go this way, to go this way, to go this way. And then eventually we do readjust. And one of the things I say to my clients is just move and don't worry about it being in the wrong direction. The universe is a great GPS. It will redirect and
hmm,
recalculate for you, right? And this client is just starting to own herself, her true self, right? And we
right,
talked about the crap she just went through. Really horrifying crap. Um, and not just this time, but in the past, and letting go of the stories when she finally started to understand letting go of the stories and understanding that that happened then and finding the now moment. She's finding the now moment. So can you share some of that experience with you of some of the things you've let go of, maybe have been hard to let go of, and finding the now that is you? Because I know
Um,
you've done so much of it. Just pick a story or two.
Yeah, I have. There's been a number of it,
Hmm.
and it's not to, blame anybody else. Everybody does the best they can. We are all different personalities, different people, and not everybody maybe understands how. And it's funny because I had a guest on that, like she says, we weren't taught how to raise a human, right?
Right?
We different perceptions, but my perception growing up because I was so different was that I was the problem child. I wasn't up to somebody else's expectations, which drove me to be a perfectionist, to try and prove prove who I am, prove who I'm right, or not always that I'm necessarily right, but prove who I am and that I do know things. And it's just that was my own perception, but that was my own journey. But it's a very bad record that kept playing in my head. The more I got here and the more I got more in touch with myself, I realized I have nothing to prove. And I have learned that ditching perfectionism is the best thing I have ever done. I told people, I said, I am perfectly imperfect. You either resonate with me or you don't, and that's okay. Not everybody's going to like me and they don't have to.
I love that. Yes, so I can identify for sure with being the perfectionist, right? Um, because if it's not perfect, it's not good enough, right? And even having a boss saying, you can wrap this project up, Gail, it's good enough. I need you on something else. And I sat there going, but, and she's like, no, let it go. And it was so difficult, so difficult. I later learned, and I wrote down proving yourselves again. How many of us do things because we want to be seen?
Mhm.
We want to be heard. We feel invisible. We feel unworthy. And so we'll do amazing things so people will give us accolades, or horrible things so people will at least know that we're there,
Yeah.
right? Either one, we're still looking for the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's amazing what you pick up because I remember even when I was in the military and we would be like in this group and somebody would ask me something. Well, I happen to be a very detailed oriented person. So sometimes I might go, I guess, into more details on what people want. And so then they would just stop and start talking right over me. So I got in the habit of talking very quickly so I could get out what I wanted to say. But then other people, when you go to work with them, they just like glass over, like, okay, love you, love your energy, but you got to slow it, slow it down. So that was something else I had to, you know, get uningrained with me and just and ditch that as well. I will tell you, perfectionist, especially if you are an entrepreneur and doing stuff, perfectionism will kill you
You don't
because
have
you're
time.
always waiting for something to be perfect. You're afraid to launch it. And you can be in that startup mode for a whole lot of years. Now, I know they also, a lot of people teach you, hey, just go sell it and then figure out how to do it. Well, if you're a perfectionist, that is horrifying.
You
And
can't,
that
you
is
can't.
scary and horrifying. It's like, yeah, okay, got to find a happy medium in there. And so
Mhm.
I've learned over the years to take bits and pieces of what I learned, but not be so ingrained that I have to follow somebody else that I lose who I am because I've made that
Uh,
mistake too. They
Yeah.
always say if you want to learn from someone, you find someone that you meant, yeah, that they mentor you, you follow what they do, which is great. But being military and everything else, and my personality, I kept following. And it wasn't until I got brave enough to like branch out and do something of my own, like even a travel presentation. I finally stopped reiterating what my mentor said and I decided to make it my own. I can't tell you how many compliments I had that night, and they were hoping that I did the presentation all the time. That floored me, but
Yeah.
it started me thinking a little bit, still wasn't ready to just jump out of that shell. So it took me way too many years. So if I can save anybody the years the years of struggle, ditch the perfectionism and don't lose who you are.
So I'll share with you a story of, we're talking about the perfectionist and the someone
Hmm.
who has to prove themselves, right?
Right.
And I was always a leader, always a manager. And at this point, I was leading a training department, internal training, and my boss managed the external training, the people who went on the road across the country. And she had the leadership from across the country in, and her trainers were, they had that responsibility. She came up to me because one of the trainers didn't come in that day. And she said, I need you to cover such and such. I was horrified. I have never done this. And I looked at her and I said, I'm not one of your trainers. Why can't one of your trainers fill in for her? And she said, I need you. I can't carry this all by myself, and I need you now. You know the product. Get out there. So I'm sweating bullets, right?
Right.
And I'm in front of a room full of men, guys, a room full of men, high-powered men,
Hmm.
and I'm fumbling. Like, holy shit. So it's true that after 5 minutes of sweating bullets, the fear is gone. And I found some kind of groove. And I'm writing on the board and I'm asking and answering questions and I'm pointing to people and just as though I had been trained for years to do this, right?
Right.
And I look up and she's giving me the cut sign. It's time to wrap it up. So I wrapped it up and she came over to me. She goes, You're on the road with me from now on. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. But when a perfectionist or any of you can get out of your head,
Hmm.
right, and
Right.
pass the bullets of sweat, you don't know what you're going to find,
No, you don't.
right? So, how did you, or what's a story where you got out of your head and found something there that you didn't even realize was there?
Um, well, I've had a couple of instances, but I guess probably one of my biggest moves was launching my Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross TV show. Because for one, you are looking at someone that would read a 5 minute speech off in 3.5 minutes, trying not to black out and pass out and hit the floor. And yet now I'm all over the place. So, yeah, trying to, I started by watching everybody else's shows. How are they doing the intro? How are they doing this? And then I had to keep stopping myself. And I'm like, okay, mimicking what they're doing is not who I am. And I used to always feel like I had to ask them, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And it took a little time because as I started to get people on and they loved what I did, they loved the intro, the sayings and the stuff that was on there. And I thought, I don't need anybody else's opinion. This
Right?
is me, and people resonate with it. So, um, yeah, that was kind of one of my biggest moments. It still pops up from time to time, but I stop myself and it's like, I've gotten this far. It's been on almost 2 years. People love it. They resonate with me with it, and that's what. And I keep the saying in my mind of one person that I did work with, like they say, who shows up was meant to be there. So even if you held a meeting and no one showed up or only one person showed up, you go at it like you got a whole room full of people because it was meant for them.
Exactly. I 1000% agree with you on that for sure. There have been times where I've had training scheduled and one person has showed up, and other times when it's been standing room only, right?
Yeah,
It has nothing to do with me or the subject because it's still me, still the same subject. It has to do with the timing and who needs to be there at that point in time. Um,
right. And something we have a tendency to do is say, "Oh, well, it's just you." So you start to like make it impersonal, or just kind of like get lax. It's like, but no, that would be the wrong thing to do. You need to make it just as professional as you would
I
for an
show up.
entirely packed room.
Yep, yep, still show up. Um, One of the things that I do, and I have for a while, but so much more now than ever before, is I follow what we would call divine guidance. I follow my intuition, and I'm able to feel the difference between ego and guidance. And sometimes the two of them have to have a conversation, right?
Yeah, yes, they do.
Right. And I allow them to, right? Okay, guys, let's talk this out, right?
Hmm.
Let's come to some consensus, just like any boardroom. And
Right.
tell us a little bit about what it was like for you to discover that it was, number one, okay for you to listen to guidance that is not ego guidance or learned guidance. And you kind of shared a little bit of that, and how you know the difference and how this has changed your life.
A lot of that I'm kind of still new to it and I'm still figuring some of that out. So I'm still working through that, but I do recognize more and more when I'm getting into my head. And I've never been a very ego driven person. I do take pride in what I do, and maybe that's just another name for ego, but I'm not very ego driven. I'm very heart driven. Um, so I've always been a very heart-centered, heart-driven person. That's who I am. I wind up normally arguing with with myself that's beating up myself for things.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's where I have to like shut off and it's like, you know what? No, I've done well. I may have a whole, there's always, if you're in business, there's always something to do. But I am
Yeah.
not going to work so much that I'm so much pain locked up and I stop taking care of myself or I stop being there, for my friends and family. Because it's one of the things I went into business for. So I could be there for family and friends, have control of my own time. And I'm not gonna, go the opposite. And I do have to struggle when I sometimes I was like, oh, I got this is a okay, it's not time to rest on your laurels. You still have to keep moving, but they're still finding that harmony or the balance instead of, like full throttle, full stop. There's a place in the beginning. But yeah, I kind of learned it. And sometimes it just takes a few quiet moments. I will go out or I'll go walk. Like before I came on here, I went outside with Pup and we walked around because my trees are blooming and,
Hmm.
the flowers and just regrouped, recentered myself. It's sunny, it's beautiful out, and just, took my few deep breaths and regrouped because I have had no idea what we were going to discuss, but I'm like, whatever it is, we're gonna roll with it and it's
We're gonna
okay.
roll.
Yep.
Yeah. So I love the fact that you mentioned that you're still doing it, and then the ego versus heart. Um, for me, when I think of ego, I don't think of being egoic. I think of ego is free will, right?
Hmm.
Ego, it allows me to choose to follow instinct, like or not. And sometimes ego is right because ego's job is to keep me safe, right?
Right.
However, things that are not a danger, ego will see as a danger. For instance, I'm working with people who are going through metamorphosis. They're going through spiritual, emotional, and sometimes physical, in fact, always physical changes, right?
Hmm.
And ego is trying to keep you where you are because that is safe, that is known, and the unknown is death to the known,
Right.
right? And so that's when I say egoic choices, it's making choices. It could be from the heart and yet still be an egoic choice, right?
Yeah.
Because you care so much. One of the things that I have been writing about today, so maybe we can touch on this, is about being heart-centered and so heart-centered as a giver that you deplete yourself.
Been there, done that.
Okay, so let's talk about that
Been there, done that
because
multiple
those of
times.
us who are in this world, so many healers, shall we say, believe that they're here to fix someone, and we're not.
No.
Yes,
I,
so
I
let's.
had I had to learn that. I had to learn to protect myself. And I didn't realize that that was all part of being empathic and being sensitive because I had no idea at the time. But I went through a lot of years where, yeah, don't go after my family, my friends, whatever, because whatever they're going through, I took it on.
Yep.
And I took it on big time. And
Yep.
I started getting aches, pains, or ailments, and I never really realized that that had to do with all of that. And then I had to go through a phase where I call it NMP, not my problem. Like, it's not that I don't care. I'm here for you. You can use me as a sounding board, but I can't take it on. I just can't.
Yeah.
I have enough of my own things that pop up. I need to protect that space because it does. I don't sleep. I don't sleep well because I'm stressed and I'm worried, which affects my body systems. I don't, things don't process right, which causes other problems. It's just a chain reaction if you don't stop it and do it.
Yeah.
One of my hardest ones was I had a friend, my best friend, and I don't normally put myself out that far, but she went down. She went down with a mini stroke, and we always had each other's back. And I took on medical and financial power of attorney because then she was going to have to go into assisted living. I had to sell a house. I took on all of her stuff. And then there was battles with people that didn't have her best interests at hand. And it was a tough time. It's not something I would ever do again. I've learned that I cannot do that anymore. But, you know, yeah. So it's lessons learned. But yeah, I couldn't take all that on.
Yeah, it's that, and it's tough because this is someone that you care for, that had a long-term relationship with, and you wanted to be sure her best interests were taken care of, right?
Well,
But
and
yet,
at that point in time, we'd actually only known each other for about 5, 6 years. We're only a month apart, you know, and kind of like oil and water because she was Army, I was Air Force. But um, other than that, she would always tell people I'd go to all her appointments. She'll call me her sister, and people will think that we're sisters. That's fine.
yeah,
I don't care. We've always had each other's back. That's probably part of another military thing as well, but we just always had this connection, kind of.
yeah, and when you meet someone, whether or not there's like maybe a previous life connection, but there's a reason for you to be there. One of the things that happens to me now that I've realized that it's not my job, right? Not my job, man, is when, but I still have the urge, right? I still want to, right? As I'm about ready to say something, I hear the universe say, shut up, and literally pushes me back, right? And I'll be like, whoop, right? And then, just listen, and I'll hear, not yours to solve,
Hmm.
right? And I had an interview with someone who told their story of learning this particular lesson. And their story was they were in the store and they bought this candy for their daughter. And she ended up eating the candy. And the universe said, not your candy. And so when she starts to do that, trying to solve someone else's problem, the universe says to her, not your candy. Right. And so she's taking the candy away because you're taking their lesson away. Right.
Gotcha. Right.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have found that because, we all go through struggles and stuff. And like I said, I'm always there for people to listen to. If they want my advice, I can tell them my perception or what I might do. But ultimately, what they decide to do is their choice. It's no reflection on me. It's their choice, and I had to learn that, to step back. You don't take it personally. um
Yeah.
you can't, you take it all on, and like I said, it causes a lot of problems, and I have helped people in the past to my own detriment, putting us, either in financial straits over helping someone, or that just because it was always my, I don't know, need, drive to, like you said, fix people, giver, and it would be at my own expense a lot of times. And I
Yeah.
had to shut that off.
Yeah.
I had to shut
Yeah.
that off.
Yeah. I mean, I literally um will go, 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 go. And the first time that I had a breakdown because of it, I was 16. I literally for 3 days in a ball crying, exhausted because I pushed myself too far. But I didn't understand. I mean, I understood that I was exhausted, but I didn't understand the root of what was going on. And so it happened again, maybe 10 years later. Um, and I was again in the ball, not being able to move. But then I was old enough to say, what is going on with me? Why is this happening? And so started to observe my behavior, right? Started to
Yeah.
observe my choices. Um, and I started to observe the warning signs so I didn't stop, but
Yeah.
again, in layers, we learn our lessons in layers, right?
But that's a start. And it's like
Right.
I've learned how to start observing my thoughts. and not letting those bad things play, or, if something happened, okay, so what, why does that affect me? It doesn't, and if it doesn't, you got to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, I love that. The observing thoughts. You know, they say that I don't even know who they are, but if you search it in the internet, which of course is the source of all truth, uh,
It's got to be true then, right?
right? It's got to be true. It's on the internet,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Um, but you can find that there is evidence that 80% of our thoughts are negative,
Hmm.
right? And I can honestly say that's not true with me anymore. But as you said, it was a conscious, intentional effort to be aware of the thoughts because your thoughts create your reality,
Right.
right? And if I think that something is horrible, then it is horrible, right? And even if it's not, it's going to be horrible to me.
Right. As I say, it's horrible to you. And
Right, right, right,
it's your truth, and that's
right,
okay. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so um, I started with being aware of the first thoughts when I woke up. And you'll see if you've watched any of the interviews that I've done for me, there's a habit that I have, my morning routine. And I share it with my clients and I'll share it with you. Every morning I get up and before I really do much of anything, I do this. Joy, 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 joy. How can you not
Right.
start the day off feeling good?
I start mine off with like these four little audio files that have frequencies and stuff. Yeah, they're just, they have different frequencies in them, and it's meant to help me balance. So I start my morning and I end my night with it. And then I learned from like listening to Joe Dispenza and other stuff that, you just wake up and say, hey, this is going to be a fantastic day. I'm going to be, I mean, set your intention from the beginning
Right?
instead of the, oh my God, I got to drag my butt out of bed. I got to do this.
Right.
And,
And I'm going to
because,
find all the joy
oh,
there's
oh yeah.
possible in life. I'm going to, right, or there is nothing but joy rather than
Yeah.
putting in the future because it will never happen if it's in the future, right? And you're
Mhm.
right, it's setting the intention, and then um, doing whatever it takes. I have a friend who's in this world of ours, very magical woman, and she has a saying, and it's, oh, how good can it get? How good can it get? Right. And
Right.
so getting up in the morning, that's one of the things she says. I can almost taste how delicious that must be. Right.
Right.
So guys, how good can it get?
Yeah. Oh, and like you said, it's a very conscious effort. And I did that. I read about that study and stuff. And it's true. It's because our media, our news, everything we are around has negativity. It's like they just feel that negativity sells, and that's what they do. It takes a conscious effort to get yourself out of that cycle. I
Yep.
don't watch the news. I still watch shows and stuff here and there, but I don't watch the news. I don't record it. Some people record it to watch it later. And I was like, no, I have enough stuff that pops up on my phone. I know what's going on. I'm not oblivious. I just don't live in it. You do something when you can do something about it, and the rest, let it go. Why let it get you all cranked up and upset and damage your health when it's out of your control?
And I call it feeding the fire,
Hmm.
right? Because we are energy, and the energy that I put out is going to have a butterfly effect, a
Yep.
ripple effect. Right? And so if I also don't watch the news anymore. And then in the past, there was a time I knew I was very politically involved. I knew all of what was going on. I knew what my Congress people were voting on. I knew what was going on. I would watch Congress, not anymore. And why? It's not in my care, custody, and control.
And
It,
like you, I pay a lot more attention to energies now.
yes,
You never
yes,
used to really think about it much, but sometimes you might have been dreading to go somewhere, but then there might have just been that person where all of a sudden you're really happy you went and you showed up. It's because of the energy, and it fills you.
yes.
But if you're going places where all of a sudden you just feel so drained and so tired, then I know not to go back to that space again.
Right?
Or
Or
I
you
make an
leave.
excuse and I leave.
Yes, or leave.
I leave. It's like this is not the energies I want to be around. I need to leave.
Exactly. So I'm in collaboration with someone right now. So I have quite a few collaborations with people. And that means that together we will create a program and we will sell it and do something with it.
Mhm.
And this is a leadership program. And he asked me, he said, well, what do we do with the narcissistic leader? And I said, I won't take the contract. You can do whatever you want because we are two separate. I have a very different approach to leadership than him, but I've been a leader in corporate. He has a small business. He's owned his own business, leadership approach. Both of
Mhm.
them are successful,
Right.
right? But I say you're a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll, right?
And sometimes it's good to have different
Yes,
perspectives.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's why we think it's good because we think we can touch more in an organization, bringing the same goal from different perspectives. So I said, I have no problem if there's some business that I don't want to work with, but you do, you take it. This is a program.
Hmm.
And if as an individual you would be better fit for that, I'm not interested in going where I don't fit. It's
Right.
wasting my energy,
Hmm.
right? That energy isn't in alignment. And that is more important to me than the dollar. And I said to him, I will leave the dollar on the table. You can pick it up.
Yeah. That's to me, the dollar is the bottom of my it'll come. When you do stuff that you're aligned and you're helping people, or you do stuff that you're truly passionate about, it comes.
It
But
comes.
like you, I've done one of those collaborations, and I thought it was one of the best things since sliced bread. They were in that world, highly sensitive people, and I loved all the learning, was doing all the stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, I started getting back stuff. Well, you can take this over, or no, I don't have time to talk to you. And I'm like, it just totally broadsided me. And when I had talked to another one that could talk to her team, she said, that wasn't you. She says, that was them. They were all ego. I'm not ego. We were not a good fit.
Right.
And
Right.
so I made sure. So that ended. And I was like, and I had to let it go
Right.
because
Right.
I was crushed. I took it personally and I was
Well,
crushed, but
type A
I had to let it
personality.
go and just say, you know
Yep.
what? That was not meant to be. It was a
Yep.
lesson learned and I'm moving on.
Right. And so you now know the signs of that type of environment. And it doesn't mean that that's wrong. It's just not right for you.
Right.
Right. I had a symposium that I presented at one time. It was so funny. Oh, Laura, this gentleman called to invite me in, and it's all engineers, leadership engineers calling me.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, so what's the intention of the symposium? Because all of these events hopefully have an intention. They're not just there so people can bleh, right?
Right.
And he said, disruption in leadership. I went, oh, how disruptive can I be? And he said, as disruptive as you'd like. So I said, okay. Then I got my contract out to start asking him questions, right? Because so the
Mm.
first thing is, am I a fit for you?
Right.
Because if I'm not, I mean, I know other speakers, I could refer you to, and if I'm not, I'm not going to go because
Right.
why would I be in front of a bunch of people who don't want to hear me? That's nuts, right? And so I talk about flow in leadership because that's how I led. But
Mm.
because these were engineers, I created a formula. And that formula now is a book, Crafting the Flow Formula, right? I
Right.
had them up, they were doing conga lines. It was amazing,
Nice.
amazing, right? Because part of flow is play. And so the point being is knew this gentleman and I connected, but that didn't mean that the event and I were going to connect. So I asked the questions about what direction can I take this and how far can I go?
Right.
I got permission is huge, whatever I wanted. And it was awesome.
I love you say that permission is huge because I used to know by someone that would always say it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. And would just
Yeah.
and would just go and do what they needed to do. I'm like, well, okay then.
You know, Well, I was like that. I mean, in corporate, if I stopped asking for permission because I would get no, and then the problem that I would solve would have solved would
Hmm.
come to fruition. So then I just started doing it. But when I talk about permissions, I'm talking about permission to yourself for sure.
Right,
It's the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is give yourself permission to forgive, give yourself permission to fail, give yourself permission to pick up and try again, give yourself permission to love, right? Whatever it is that you think you're lacking, give yourself permission to explore it and let it go. And just saying that releases like the pressure cooker, the tension that's holding it down. Like, psh,
right. Yeah, I've been working
enough.
with a lady recently, so it's funny that you said that because, well, she energizes with water and is getting people back in touch with water and their water molecules and energy. But that's something that, she always says, are you in flow or force? Because if you're forcing things, it's always hard, but flow. And if you focus on water, doesn't matter if there's boulders or whatever in its way, it continues to flow. It moves, it goes over, it goes around, it goes under, it doesn't stop.
And it
It
can wear the
stays at
rock
flow.
down.
Hmm.
It can wear it down.
Yeah, it stays in flow.
That's funny. I use water always 'cause there's a lot of water in my life and me. One of the things that some about resistance or flow.
Hmm.
And one of the things that can happen to me while I'm in my kayak going down the river and flow is I could hit a boulder and might hang on to the boulder. If I hang on to that boulder too long, then my kayak is going to be pulled out from under me, and then I'm in deep trouble.
Right.
So why would I do that? If something is not in alignment, I'm not going to hold on to the boulder. I'm going to hold on to my kayak and go down the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds
It,
so
it was
easy.
amazing. I learned so much from her because there's so much related with water and with what we do. And when you have those things holding you back, she's been talking to us and teaching us about how it's the undercurrent. It's the thing that that pulls you back. So it's really amazing the connection and everything when you never thought about it. I always knew I was drawn to water dolphins all my life. I just kind of never really knew why, which is why I love doing her little program that we're working on right now. And she keeps sharing different tidbits about water. And it's like, you never thought to think of it that way. But
Well, you know the experiment of energy and water, right? So if I have two glasses and if one I put love into it and the other I put hate into it, the
mhm,
molecules are absolutely different.
mhm.
One of the things I will do if I'm in an in-person um, ceremony, shall we say, um, my presentation, the work I do on connection, I start off with a cacao ceremony. And it's just cocoa, guys. It's just cocoa
Yeah.
with a little something. Um, but but you mix your own hot cocoa, and you do want to put some honey in it because it's pure cocoa, not really tasty, pure
No,
cocoa,
that's pretty tart, normally
pretty
bitter and
pretty
strong.
tart.
Yeah.
And as you're making it, you're putting intention into it. You're putting in what it is that you want to change about yourself, what you love about yourself, or whatever. And then as we start to play some drums or some music or whatever, and we drink the cacao, we start drinking, talking about our intentions and how that is going through our body because the water in the cocoa becomes that intention and the chemicals in the cocoa intensifies that. And the meditations after that are amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And it's not hallucinogenic, but man, you think it is.
Yeah, I know. I always get kicked out of it because you can tell people that are, and I don't know if some people are still, I don't want to say embarrassed or they're just worried that they're going to get judged for it. But a lot of people keep calling it a woo-woo space. I'm like, got news for you. This woo-woo's been around for a really, really long time,
But it's
longer than
not,
us.
it's who we are. I mean, back to our beginning,
Hmm.
our conversation at the beginning, there is no division.
Right.
Um, what's happening is ego is starting to die. And I don't want to say ego dies because we can't exist in the third dimension without ego, right?
Mhm.
Because ego holds our stories, and our stories is what creates the third dimension, right? It's how we identify with being here. So stories are important. We just don't want
Right.
destructive stories. Um,
You can rewrite them though and change. You
oh,
can
I
rewrite your
know. You're
stories
the
and change them.
author. You're the main character. You're the director. You're the set designer. You're the one who hires the supporting cast. It's all up to you.
Yeah. So if you
And
don't like it, fire yourself.
or rewrite the script.
Or
Get a
rewrite. Yeah.
ghostwriter,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right. I call getting a ghostwriter is when I'm working with my spiritual guide, right? Like, okay, I'm a little bit confused as to what's going on in my life. And then, he always says, well, you're the one who created this. What do you think?
Yeah. And I've had different things too throughout that's like, didn't realize that's what was necessarily going on. The only thing I could explain was that, I just like one morning, like when we came down here to find a place, our house was already sold. It was already under contract and sold. I hadn't found a place. I put it up on the market the same day we moved. We traveled to, we didn't move yet, but we traveled to Missouri to find a place. And we had like bad showings after that. I don't know who was photoshopping those pictures, but I'm like, okay, this is not what these things look like. And then for whatever reason, the third morning I woke up just knowing that that was the day. And sure enough, I found the house that we loved and we live in now. But it was just weird. Well, for me, it was just weird because I wasn't used to that. But I woke up with just that feeling that I knew whatever it was we were going to see today, something was going to fall in, that we were going to find what we had been looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So I tend to go on road trips every year,
Hmm.
at least once. And they can go anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, depending on where I go. And the last road trip, I kind of plan them out, but I'm very a broad stroke, not fine stroke with my planning. Every leg had a twist, and every twist was for my benefit 100% of the time. All to the point where coming back, I was supposed to show up in Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee,
Hmm.
at a certain point in time, but a hurricane came and got stuck. And I didn't go because my son, I was in Colorado. My son said, why don't you stay longer? Because your granddaughter's going to her first formal and wouldn't you want to see that? So I stayed 3 days longer and avoided being in the middle of
Right.
horror, right? Right.
Yep.
And just, I mean, that was just like one example of every step of the way. Ended up giving me some beautiful gift because of it. And that's what going in flow, right? Not hanging on to the rock. No, I have plans.
And not getting uptight that, oh, I was supposed to be here and I'm not on
Right.
schedule. And I'm like,
Right, right.
yeah,
And
that's
all I did was call my friend and she said just as well, there's a storm coming. I'm like, okay. And then I called her after the storm and she said, I have no electricity or water or internet. And I'm like, well, let me get water, go halfway, and I'll stop for the night and I'll call you. If you have electricity, I'll come. If you don't, I'll go home with a bunch of water.
hmm.
Right?
Right.
And she had electricity and the internet and I did came come and I didn't stay as long because she didn't get her water back and I did not want to deplete her water,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because she has farm animals. I mean, she's needs water for
Hmm.
a lot of
Yeah.
different things. Um, so it was, just the perfect timing. And that's what flow is. That's following um your gut and not feeling obligated. Well, I made plans to be there at a certain time. She's expecting me. Well, then change your plans.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah. I think we got really rigid, especially when we started working for corporate and working jobs, and you only had 2 weeks off to do stuff, and then you had to get back to work and answer it. So I think that made us all very kind of rigid of this is my only time. This is when I got to do stuff because
Right.
normally if you're working for someone trying to go back and get it altered to say, oh, well, this is going on now,
Right?
it's very tough to do.
Yeah, it was. And I will say, and then we'll wrap this up. Um, One of the functions I had in corporate was as a program leader. And so, change management was a big thing for me. And I was working for a small company called GE at the time. And they had a project, my very first project, with a certain deadline. And when I got on that project, it was already in flow, if you will,
Mhm.
and already going down the tubes. And they had the wrong people, just so much going wrong with it. And I took it over, and there was a deadline that there's no way we're going to meet that deadline. So I went to the VP and I said, why is this the deadline? Because I know deadlines are arbitrary,
Right.
right? And he said, well, this has to be in by the end of the year, or I don't get my bonus. I said, well, what is the wording on your bonus? So the wording was a live transaction has to occur by the end of the year. I said, well, we could test with a live transaction by then, but we can't go live by then. So we tested with a live transaction. He got his bonus, and I got the 2 months the team needed to get that done properly.
Nice. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right. So understanding what the constraints are, right? And that's part of flow. That's part of it, it's like, what is it that you really want to achieve? Let's get real and down to the nuts and bolts of what it is that you want to achieve. And how can we do this in the least frictional way? Let's put it that way, because there's friction in corporate. There's just friction. But do it in a way that elegant,
Yeah.
is elegant. So, Laura, thank you so much for your time. If someone wanted to get in touch with you and talk to you about your radio show or the work that you do, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can find me. Well, you can email me at whitesandsselfcare@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Just look for Laura Cross White Sands. White Sands is attached to me everywhere. Yeah, I'm always happy to connect and collaborate, because for me, nothing is a competition. I love collaborating. I love learning from other people. And yeah, I am a person that pretty much lives totally in flow. I have no time and space for friction. It's just like I just don't do that anymore.
Yep,
I don't have
yep.
the space for it or the energy. I'm like, nope, not where I want to be.
I love it.
So,
I love it. No. And all of this information will be in the show notes, folks. So don't worry too much about writing it down unless you're driving and you want to get in touch with her right now.
yeah,
As
can always
always,
connect with me. Hit me up on Messenger either way. I'll
right, and
answer.
let her know that this is where you saw her so that she has a clue about all of this. Like, who's this and why are they getting in touch with me? Right?
And it's
Um,
always fun to know where you get people from too.
it is. So I want to say thank you everyone for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If this resonated with you, please do give us a thumbs up. If you have questions, always put them in the show notes. We'd be happy to answer them. And if you know someone who could maybe learn from this or grow from this, or maybe needs to hear something here, share it out to them. And as always, be sure you subscribe so you know when the next episode is available. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye, Laura.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.